Hello and welcome to episode 54 of Hitting the Bar, the football podcast. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
So, Geoff, the approach of the Premier League this week, and we've had some internationals. Before we get on to all that, your trivia question.
On the 20th of March 1976, in a match between Aston Villa and Leicester at Filbert Street, the match ended in a 2-2 draw. Why is that unique?
I've no idea, but I'm sure it's going to be quite interesting.
Well, if you think back to the Europa League final, where Romelu Lukaku scored at both ends, figuratively at both ends, that'll give you a clue.
Okay, so because sometimes when they say scored at both ends, it means own goal and scoring for your own team, but not necessarily on the right and left side of the pitch.
Yeah, so what happened in that match that's unique?
Oh, we'll find out at the end of the show. So we start with Lionel Messi, because obviously he's had to backtrack and is back with Barcelona, having put in a transfer request. I kind of felt like he was like a naughty schoolboy who stormed out and then had to sort of skulk back in again, a little bit sheepishly.
Yeah, except that the Spanish newspapers and the Barcelona fans are looking at it a very different way. They are looking at the fact that if he wasn't going to go to court to enforce the contract, which he would have won, by the way, then he didn't really have any choice. And he loves Barcelona. He's been there since he was 13. He absolutely loves the club, and he didn't want to go to court. So that's why he's come back.
So no divorce then. It's almost like he's staying for the sake of the children because he doesn't want to upset the equilibrium. He doesn't want to upset the club where he's been since he was 13. So I get it, yeah.
Yeah, the big question for Koeman, though, is Messi's actually the club captain. So what happens now? Can he take the club captaincy away from him? And will Messi go along and say, look, it's just not right that I'm the club captain at this point, or what? It's going to be interesting to see how Koeman manages this, because he knows that his players don't want him. Only the chairman wants him. How he makes a competitive team out of this, I really don't know. The light at the end of the tunnel, though, is Ansu Fati.
Yeah, before we get on to Ansu Fati, because great player we want to talk about, I just want to add, it does seem to make it very difficult for Koeman, who did say to Messi, didn't he, when he called him and said, you're going to lose all your special privileges, you're just a member of the team. And now I can just sort of imagine in training they're not actually making eye contact. I think there'll be a lot of awkwardness in those first training sessions.
Oh, I can imagine there will be, yeah. And of course they've got to get rid of all these players that they very publicly announced they didn't want. Only Rakitic has gone to Sevilla. Suarez is off to Juventus. Yeah, two of the 20. So it's going to be, I think, training sessions there are going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think Koeman's got his work cut out, as if he didn't already. But he has got Ansu Fati, who we've watched in the Nations League. There's been some games which we're going to talk about. I watched him against Germany and Ukraine. Just brilliant, Geoff. You mentioned him on the radio show we do for 93.6 Global Radio over a year ago as your one to watch when he was about 3 years old. No, he was about 16, and you said, look out for this player. Well, how right were you?
Sometimes you see a player and you just, after 2 seconds, you say, yes, that's, this is a footballer. This is an absolute genius. This is the next big thing, and that's him. He runs very fast. He changes direction very, very quickly, but he does it. He glides when he does it, and the ball is just stuck to his toe. Nobody can get it off him. Everyone, all these big tough defenders, all know what he's going to do, and yet he still does it. And yeah, he was 16 and a bit years old when he first got into the Barca side, and what a player! Just the most fantastic player. Go on YouTube, find any clips of him playing, because it's well worth it. He's just a genius.
I watched him, and it was like that. He does glide about, almost hovering above the pitch. He makes Messi look like James Milner. It's almost like he's a ghost. He just goes through players, and they're just looking behind him, going, "Where did he go?"
The only thing I can think of like that is, and I can say this because I'm very old, but if you watch George Best in his pomp, he appeared to run in a straight line, and defenders would dive out of the way. And it's like that with Ansu Fati, and the backstory obviously with his parents being refugees and incredibly poor, and going to this wonderful commune up in the north of Spain, where it is like a sort of communist commune, is just the most fantastic story. And what an incredible player! He went to his first training match. He didn't own any football boots. I mean, he's an incredible player.
Yeah, I think we should urge people to look up on the internet his backstory, because it is a rags to riches story, but also there are a few of these communes around Spain, villages and towns that are autonomously run as communist communes, I suppose is the way to put it. But Ansu Fati, yeah, absolutely brilliant. The 2 games I watched him in recently, he was just sublime. A lot of the games, these Nation League games, can be a little bit boring. He never stopped running. He had a shot on goal. Next minute, he's in his own half, chasing the ball that he lost down. He's absolutely fantastic. Something that's missing from the England squad. I watched England against Iceland. It was dire, Geoff, dire.
Yeah, and if you look at the team he put out, you have to wonder how it could have been anything else. You know, against the attacking skill and might of Iceland, he played 2 holding midfielders. I mean, 2 holders against a team that isn't going to attack you. It's ridiculous. Southgate is. I do not understand why he was ever made England manager, and every decision he's made since has proved that he shouldn't have been. And he's doing the thing that England managers have been doing for 40-odd years, thinking he's forced to put a player into the squad, so he'll play him out of position, like Foden. Plays Foden, we'll play you out of position, then he won't play very well, and then Southgate can turn around and say, yeah, see, told you. And if he ever puts Grealish on the pitch, he'll do exactly the same thing. Because his argument for not playing Grealish is, there's the other forwards there. But Grealish is not a forward. Grealish is an attacking midfielder. There's a huge difference. So I'm convinced what Southgate is trying to do tactically is copy Liverpool. So have your attacking width coming from your full-backs and midfield players who work very hard, tackle very hard, and win the ball high up the pitch. And then, being Southgate, and we all saw it in the World Cup, hope to get free kicks and corners, and that's how we'll score.
Well, yes, it was a penalty. What won us the game? Also, Kyle Walker got sent off for a second yellow during the game, quite deservedly, having just clawed his way back into the England squad, probably done his career there for England. Probably that might be the last game he plays for England. There were, I suppose, a few highlights. Jadon Sancho, great player. Our version of Ansu Fati, I suppose. But the rest of it was very, very bad. And my opinion about Southgate is he's a man who fits very well into a suit and speaks very nicely to the press and the public, which is what the FA have been doing since the FA was founded. Who else could do that job? I think the problem is, Geoff, that England keep just scraping by and he keeps getting away with it. They need to lose a few games in a row so people will see just how bad Southgate is as a manager. What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, didn't the World Cup show that? We scored 1 goal that wasn't from a free kick or a corner or a set piece. 1 goal. It's pathetic. And the first good team we play, we lost. So it's been the same with England for years and years and years. Just pick the best team, pick the best players. And if you don't know who the best players are, and Southgate clearly doesn't, go into a pub and ask somebody, because everyone else knows. You've got this very, very well organised defence that's going to sit deep, so you've got to unpick them. That means essentially you need really good passers and good dribblers, and he had one on the bench in Grealish and refused to put him on the pitch. International matches are won when you get the ball on the ground in the penalty area, and that's what Grealish does.
One thing that a lot of pundits and commentators say, and it's probably a bit disingenuous really, but it is pointed out quite regularly that we're playing Iceland. They have a population of 330,000, the size of Coventry. You're not going to be attacked by them. They're not going to come out at you. They're going to sit back and defend. It is a little bit insulting to Iceland to make that comparison and all those things, but really, the level we're on, the level they're on, we should have put loads of flair players on the pitch and gone out and just wave after wave of attack. And yet Harry Kane, for me, looked isolated.
Yeah, it's down to the tactics of the manager and the players he picks. I mean, it was an incompetent performance from the manager, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because for me, there were some great players on the pitch. I've seen them play well together in their club teams and for England, and yet it was almost like they were frustrated by the tactics he'd given them to play. A bit like we said about Arsenal, that they didn't know what they were doing because the manager told them to play in a certain way and they didn't want to and they couldn't, but they had to, and England looked like that to me. We're recording this just before England take on Denmark. You said both games England will win 2-0. I think we said, Iceland 2-0 and Denmark 2-1, something like that. Are you going to change your prediction?
Did I say 2-0? I thought I said 2-1. No, I said because Maguire isn't playing, it will be 2-0. Yeah. Although Southgate's talking now about going to a back three. Why would you go to a back three against Denmark? I don't know. No, I'll stick with it. I think it'll be 2-0. But we were very, very lucky to beat Iceland.
2 players who won't be in that game tonight. and by the time you're listening to this podcast, it'll have been at least yesterday, because we release on a Wednesday. 2 players who won't be there: Foden of Manchester City and Greenwood of Manchester United. They went out, they had a little bit of a night out, met a couple of girls, got filmed by the girls, surprise, surprise, and it was all put on social media, and they've been sent home in disgrace, as some of the papers are saying. What do you make of that? They're 19 and 20 years old. You and I got up to a lot worse when we were that age, and we still do.
Well, what do I make of it? They're 2 young lads who behave like young lads. They got caught, got a slap in the wrist and sent home, and that really should be the end of it. Tabloid headlines we're seeing, you think they killed somebody? They're 2 young lads who behave like 2 young lads. They were wrong. They got a slap on the wrist. It should end there.
I do feel, however, that when you're on England international duty, you should behave with a bit of decorum. You should certainly do what you're told, and if you're told to stay in and not go out, that's what you do.
Yeah, but that's what they got the slap on the wrist for, isn't it? So I don't understand why it doesn't end there. The reaction of the tabloids has been just pathetic. It's been risible. It's ridiculous.
Similar to when Beckham got sent off against Argentina and had to spend the next year rehabilitating himself because the press and the press rile up the fans, don't they? And I don't think this will help Foden and Greenwood behave any better, because obviously they're going to keep it going as long as they can.
Well, the thing with Beckham, and I mean the thing that nobody really wants to talk about very much is that Simeone played him like a drum, didn't he? He set the trap and Beckham walked into it. And the thing you can say about Beckham is that he did learn from it, and he became a better player and a better person because of it. Now, the 2 young lads, I think we talked about what they've done enough. You know, it was not very serious what they did, and they were stupid, and they've been punished for it. So that should be the end of it.
Well, they've got a Premier League kick-off coming up this weekend. We'll talk about the fixtures in a little while, but let's talk about some of the transfers. So what with the Premier League starting shortly, we are in the middle of a sort of transfer window. I'm a Tottenham fan. It's like a parallel universe. We've signed players before deadline day. Very odd. Don't know what's happening there. But some other teams have made some big signings, but you want to talk about, and I know why, Everton. Because everybody's having a big fanfare about this major signing they've made, like it's a statement of intent. I think probably what you're going to say is we should be looking at their income statements.
Well, yeah, I think that is part of the problem. But anyone who says that James Rodriguez is a fantastic signing has not been paying attention for the last 5 years. How much did they pay for him? 20 million. Is that how much you pay for a 29-year-old who is a genuinely world-class player? Genuinely world-class 29-year-olds go for a lot more than 20 million. So that tells you something for a start. James Rodriguez is one of these players that gets thrown up by the World Cup almost every time. There is someone who captures everyone's imagination at the World Cup, and this got him big move to Real Madrid. He joined the Galacticos, but he didn't quite make it, did he? Zidane didn't like him very much. He never convinced. He was good, but he didn't convince as a superstar. Went on loan to Bayern Munich, who had an option to buy him. So does his time at Bayern Munich. Here comes the option to buy, and Bayern Munich say, no, thank you. Goodbye. So Everton is the best team that he could go to. Now, Everton, who probably won't even win the Everton Cup next year, with all due respect to Everton fans, and I like Everton, and I know some of their fans, and they're great. But Everton aren't Liverpool. Everton aren't Manchester City. He's one of these players that had enormous potential, and people keep saying, "Oh, he's got potential. He's got potential," and then 5 years later, you start thinking, "Well, actually, what happened to it all?" And that's when he sat in Real Madrid on a huge contract, absolutely massive salary, and looking to get out. And of course, most of the teams that would be interested can't afford the money. Who buys players like that? Well, traditionally West Ham or Everton buy it, and Everton stumped up the money. Can Everton afford it? No, they can't. Everton are in a huge financial problem. In the last financial year where they reported, they made a loss of £112 million. Now that they can only do once under financial fair play rules. So something has to change. Do you think taking on the wages for James Rodriguez is going to improve that? Everton's ratio of wages to turnover is 85%, which of the top 20 teams in the world is far and away the worst. So what's gone wrong at Everton? Well, the answer is they bought a lot of players for too much money. Theo Walcott, Moise Keane, Alex Iwobi. 35 million for Alex Iwobi, for God's sake. Can't even get in the Arsenal team. Gylfi Sigurdsson, Fabian Delph, Luca Dean. It's a nightmare. teams like Everton and West Ham should be going and finding the talented young midfield player from Augsburg or some Portuguese team, not buying cast-offs from Real Madrid at big money. And they have a big rebuilding job to do, and I'm not sure they have the money to do it. So I said I doubt if Everton will even win the Everton Cup next year, and I think they're probably 10th, 11th place. Probably it's not good. So we're going back to these the World Cup stars, and every single World Cup throws up a player like Jairzinho in 1970 went to play for Inter at Milan. Didn't really pull up any trees there. Toto Schillaci in 1990, the wild-eyed dribbling scorer like James Rodriguez, Golden Boot. What did he do afterwards? Nothing. A year later, nobody's ever heard of him. Sometimes a team gets one of these headline players like the Klinsmann went to Tottenham, and Tottenham players forget he was only there for one season, but he's a hero because of what he did. So is James Rodriguez going to be a Klinsmann or Toto Schillaci?
Well, yeah, I'm a Tottenham fan, and I was actually at Klinsmann's first game away at Sheffield Wednesday, where he scored, of course. And for me, he is one of our legends, although he did play for just a year or so and then went away and came back again to help us out, stop us getting relegated. But he was brilliant because he was a big name signing for a lot of money, and you do think, this could go either way, but it went the right way. But what you said about Rodriguez being 20 million, that's nothing, really. If that's your sort of marquee signing and the only place he could go to is Everton, and Real Madrid went, you can have him for 20 million, then quite clearly there's something wrong, isn't there? He can't be that good if Real Madrid rated him just for 20 million, and the only people they could find to buy him were Everton. So he's found his level. Best of luck to him, but I think Everton probably have been sold a pony there.
Yeah, I think the thing to sum it all up, really, is Everton, like West Ham, keep buying supposedly great players for high money and wages, but the squad never gets any better.
Yep, been there. Yeah, we know what that's like. Another team that's been spending a bit of money, despite sort of being up for sale, is Newcastle, who've just signed Callum Wilson for, again, 20 million from Bournemouth, who need the money, who've gone down, can't help but sell their players. Apparently, Aston Villa bid 21 million for Callum Wilson from Bournemouth. Newcastle bid 20, and he wanted to go to Newcastle, and he's come out with all the right statements, big club, etc., etc. But Newcastle, he's not the only player they bought.
Yeah, they bought Ryan Fraser, who was on a free, and that's a very, very good buy. I was astonished that nobody else has bought Ryan Fraser, because 2 seasons ago he was one of the most creative players in the Premier League, and there was a lot of talk of him going to Arsenal, and he should have gone, but he didn't. But him joining up with Callum Wilson at Newcastle could improve that team considerably. They've got the French lad, wide right player, who's a real express, real burner down the wing, but nothing else. Well, now they've got something else. Newcastle will probably repeat what they did this season, I think, and they're 2 very, very good buys for them.
Yeah, well done to Newcastle. So that'll keep them up then, is what we're saying. Other teams who've been spending money, of course, are Chelsea. Perhaps we'll have a look at them. But Wolverhampton Wanderers, who just missed out on a European place to Tottenham, just missed out. They've been spending some money as well.
Yeah, the highlight is they bought 18-year-old Fabio Silva from Porto, now for £35 million. And everybody in Portugal is raving about him as being a wonderful player. But he's only made 9 appearances in the Portuguese First Division. 9, and they're paying 35 million for him. That's either an incredible punt, the biggest gamble they've ever made, because that's their transfer record for Wolves. Now, last season, João Felix left Benfica for Atletico for £112 million. So I think what Wolves are thinking is, well, he's a third the price of João Felix and just as good. However, João Felix at Atletico this season wasn't brilliant. He looked as if he was drowning. It was too big a job for him to do there. Maybe this next season it will be better. It will be another year. He'll be trusted more by his manager. But I can't help thinking 35 million for a kid who's only played 9 matches is it's not a sensible decision.
No, it does look a little bit rash and as if they know something we don't, but I don't know how they could have found out anything over 9 games.
Well, maybe the fact that his agent is the agent that Wolves are using for all their transfers might have something to do with it. He's a Georgie Mendes guy.
And there's your answer. Messi, of course, who's now not going anywhere, was slated, or the rumours were that he might go to Man City. He hasn't. We've all breathed a sigh of relief. Chelsea have made some good signings. They could be up to 7 signings by the time this podcast comes out. Tottenham, as I say, made a few signings. West Ham, what have they been up to?
Well, the issue at West Ham is not who they've signed, but who they've lost. Grady Diangana has been let go to the team that he was on loan to last season, which has upset Mark Noble, the club captain, considerably. West Ham usually, in fact historically, have never done this. They bring the players through the academy and they play them, and they sell them for big money afterwards, but that's not what they've done with Diangana, and a lot of the players down there are very upset that he's been allowed to sign permanently for West Brom. And, a lot of them are saying, well, if you couldn't see the place for him this season, well, extend the loan for a year. Why let this asset go for minimally half what you're going to get for him next season? A lot of people are quite upset there. There is a reality, though, that West Ham very badly need the money.
Another team who've made a marquee signing, if you like, is Leeds United, newly promoted. It's Rodrigo? What do you make of that, Geoff? Because it, again, seems a bit of a shot in the dark for me.
Yeah, he's in the Spanish squad, and he played the other day against Germany. I don't understand this as a signing. I think they paid far too much for a player who scores 1 in 4. And, a striker's got to be scoring, you want him to be scoring 20 goals a season in the league, because that's what matters at the end of the day. And he doesn't. He's never done it. I really don't understand. To my mind, they've paid far too much for him, but Bielsa is a genius, so maybe he sees something that we don't see. The big problem Leeds fans have been talking about for a couple of years, and it will become a bigger problem in the Premier League, is they do lack a goal scorer at centre forward. They just don't score enough goals.
Well, let's have a little look at the Premier League, because by the time next week's podcast comes out, we'll have a round 1 of the 2021 season. Unbelievable. It's only 7 weeks since the end of the last one. Then let's have some predictions, Geoff. Completely blind. We don't know who will sign whom or who before the start of the league. But let's have some blind predictions. Who do you think is going to go down, first of all?
I really don't know. I think Villa will still be in the mix, especially if they do sell Grealish. West Brom, I can't see them being good enough to stay up, and Fulham, from what I saw, which was mainly the playoffs, definitely not good enough. So I think it'll be those 3 that go down.
Well, for me also, because I saw the playoff game with Fulham, and they look like a championship team. Also, well, I don't know about West Brom. I think Leeds will stay up. I think Leeds will start, because for that one thing that you mentioned, their manager. I mean, if you play for him, you do not want to be getting relegated. You do not want to suffer the wrath of Bielsa. But I think Fulham will go down, yeah. I think there are other contenders. Brighton, who have strengthened a little bit, managed to stay up last season quite comfortably in the end, I suppose.
The other thing about Brighton is they've kept hold of most of their players. They haven't sold a lot of players that were rumoured to be moving. So that, for them, that's very good.
Yeah, I think the only player they have lost, actually, was their sort of legendary goal scorer, Murray. But then he is about 52 years old, so you can understand that. So, yeah, Fulham, West Brom, and one other. I mean, it could be Newcastle. You're shaking your head, Geoff, because you don't like Newcastle, I know. And last season you said they were terrible. You've changed your mind a bit because of those signings?
I think the signings have been very good, and Bruce turned them into a decent enough team. They lacked creativity going forward, and he's addressed that problem. So, providing he can organise that defence and stay solid at the back, I think they'll finish mid-table. So, for me, as I said before, I think it's Fulham, West Brom and Aston Villa.
Well, as I say, if Grealish goes, Aston Villa could be nailed on for that, and probably should have gone down last season were it not for VAR, which, by the way, wasn't in the Nations League games, which is why Harry Kane had a perfectly good goal chalked off against Iceland. However, what about the top 4 or top 6 then? Will there be any change? Because I just have I have a feeling Liverpool will not run away with it this season, and I'm going to say that Chelsea will be up there with them.
Yeah, I can't see Liverpool winning by 18 points again. No, that's not going to happen. I think it's going to be much closer, and yes, I agree with you. I think Chelsea could compete, but I think the key signing might be Van der Beek at Manchester United. He's a very, very good player, and he might be the final piece in the jigsaw there. Well, not the final piece, because they still need to find a defence from somewhere. From their midfield and attacking point of view, Van der Beek really is just exceptional, and it's a great buy. Chelsea, with all those signings, could well be pushing for second place, yeah.
Well, since Manchester United managed somehow to finish third last season, and now they've got Van der Beek, which I think I have to agree with you, is going to make a heck of a difference. You've got Fernandes and Van der Beek. Suddenly, that looks like a very, very good team. And Pogba, they've got as well. So it's a good team, but they've also got Pogba. So I think Manchester United have improved. They've not lost anybody. Man United have improved. Chelsea have improved. Man City and Liverpool possibly felt they didn't have to particularly. I think it's going to be a lot closer, and I'm going to predict that Liverpool will not win the league. Just to shake it up, it'll be one of the others, but maybe not my team, Tottenham. But I think Tottenham will do better this coming season than we did last season, finishing 6th. And I think we'll be in the top 4.
No, I don't think. I think you'll do the same this season, 6th. I think there have been no major improvements to the Tottenham team. I still struggle to see where goals come from when you're playing a defence that's really well set up. I think Spurs needed more creativity, and they haven't brought it yet. The transfer window isn't over yet, though. But Mourinho buying creative players, I mean, doesn't usually end well, does it? Oh, mind you, he'll probably be off around about Christmas next season, so it could still work out for you. You never know. The Wanderers, if they have a really good season, will be pushing for 6th, but I think they'll win the Everton Cup. And Everton, mid-table, I think they'll be down to 10th. Newcastle, I don't think Newcastle will be in the relegation fight. If Fraser brings his A game, they definitely won't. And if Callum Wilson can score 20 goals, then they'll be top half of the table. The problem is, when you're talking about the top 4 positions, there are the 4 teams already there, and they'll be the top 4 teams that will be there at the end.
Yeah, perhaps I should rephrase my Tottenham will finish in the top 4th. Not finish in, be in at some point during the season. And I do think we'll improve on 6th. I think we could push for 5th. Is there going to be a surprise standout team this season? For me, it was Sheffield United last season. Is there going to be a Sheffield United this season? Is it going to come from the 3 teams that went up? Since we've both relegated 2 of them, probably not.
Well, if there's going to be a surprise team, it's got to be Leeds, hasn't it? And who knows what we'll get from Bielsa. He's just... That's who he is. So it might be a rerun of this season with Leeds replacing Sheffield United. Sheffield United have bought some good players though, and they've got a couple of wing backs in, which looks to be a slight change in how they're playing. So maybe we won't see overlapping centre backs anymore. But they've bought very well without being brilliant. But there haven't been that many brilliant signings anyway, have they? Apart from Chelsea.
So, normally, we'd say, finally, the Premier League is upon us, but it's only been a little break, hasn't it? And there seems to have been football every day. However, let's have a look at the Premier League and have our predictions. The first game is newly promoted Fulham are at home to Arsenal. Obviously, I'd like to see Fulham get off to a winning way back in the Premier League. They've only been out for, a year? Quite incredibly, doesn't seem like that. I'm afraid I'm going to have to go for a 2-1 Arsenal victory.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
You're saying that because I said 2-1, because we always think that Arsenal will concede goals. Yeah, that's the reason for that one. That's the early kick-off. That is the first game in the Premier League. Then we've got, we would have had Burnley against Man United, but because Man United were in a Europa League semi-final, that's been postponed. Man United getting a later start. Crystal Palace against Southampton. Already sounds quite boring, doesn't it, just when you say it? Crystal Palace against Southampton. Crystal Palace were dreadful in the last 10 games of the season. I don't think they didn't win a game, did they? At Southampton, I think I'm going to go for an away win. I think Southampton will beat Crystal Palace. At best, it'll be a draw.
I think 2-0 to Southampton. I think Hasenhüttl has shown he's a very, very good coach, and I think he'll have his players fired up.
Then it would have been Man City against Aston Villa. Man City obviously also given extra time to recover as they were in a Champions League quarter-final. So the next game is West Ham, your team, against Newcastle, who are no longer terrible, according to Geoff. I think that's a draw. So unless Newcastle can get their new players firing straight away, this quickly after being signed, then it's going to be a Newcastle win, but I do not see West Ham winning.
No, I struggle to see West Ham winning. The Ryan Fraser, one of the buys for Newcastle, is up against the weak position in West Ham's defence, which is right back. So I could see Newcastle winning that.
Yes, again, not a good start to the season for West Ham. The big one, the champions of the Premier League against the champions of the Championship. Liverpool against Leeds. Well, it's Liverpool, isn't it, surely?
I'll go for a draw, simply because of the Bielsa effect. Nobody's going to know what to expect from them, but he knows what to expect from Liverpool. So I'll go for a draw.
Good stuff. Sunday, West Bromwich Albion, newly promoted, against Leicester, who also faded away even before the lockdown and towards the end of the season. West Brom against Leicester, away win for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a Leicester win.
Then also on Sunday, this coming Sunday, Tottenham, my team, against Everton. Got to be a Tottenham win for me. I think we'll struggle, even though, as you say, Everton are in all sorts of disarray. And Ancelotti hasn't really put his mark on the team, I don't think. I think Tottenham will win that. I think we'll concede, but I think we'll win.
I'll go for a 1-1 draw.
On Monday, Brighton against Chelsea. Got to be a Chelsea win, I think, with all those new players they've signed. And they were a stronger team without those signings and would have beaten Brighton. So I'm going to go for Brighton 0, Chelsea 2.
Sad to say, I've got to agree with you again. No, those players came with high transfer fees because they're very, very good players. So, yes, 2-0.
And I think we'll see just how good Chelsea are. Then Sheffield United against Wolves, two teams very close to each other last season. That's got a draw written all over it, but I think we will see which team's coming out with the intent. Neither of them have Europa League football this season, so they've just got the league to concentrate on, as they say. Home win for me, Sheffield United to beat Wolves.
I'll go for an away win, 2-0 to Wolves.
All right, that's the start of the Premier League. Then on Tuesday, we've got the qualifying third round of the Champions League. It's all started, Geoff, finally. I say finally, it's only yesterday we were watching football.
And I don't know if you remember, but they were playing Champions League qualifiers whilst they were playing the semi-final of last season's Champions League.
Yes, it's almost like the Monty Python thing. I got up half an hour before I went to bed. It's almost like parallel universe kind of thing. Yeah, I'm playing games from this season that were played last season, whatever, but it is all very complicated. That's all we've got time for, apart from the answer to Geoff's trivia question.
Right, okay. Match between Aston Villa and Leicester at Filbert Street on 20th of March 1976. Why was that unique? It was a 2-2 draw, and Chris Nicol of Aston Villa scored all the goals. 2 goals for Aston Villa and 2 own goals, and each one was scored at the other end, so he managed to score an own goal and a goal in both goals. This is, I don't think has ever been done by anybody before. And to make matters worse, despite scoring 4 goals, he didn't get the match ball.
That's brilliant. I can just imagine, I mean, no other player in that game scored. He scored twice for both sides. That's absolutely great. I can just imagine him sort of talking to his own team and knocking on the other team's dressing room door and going, do I have to do this by myself? I'm not sure if that's a record that he would be pleased to be reminded of, but that's a fantastic question. It all starts this weekend, the Premier League. We'll be back next Wednesday with the next episode of this podcast. In the meantime, I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
And that was Hitting the Bar, the football podcast.